24th of June 2023. It's now Saturday night, it's about 7:45, 1945 hours, and I'm sitting here in the dark because of the load shedding, obviously, and I want to talk about that Wagner issue. The title of this Skidmark is "What the fuck, Pregozhin? Is it a coup, rebellion, treason, or a protest?" This is a difficult situation that has developed there, and there is a lot of reasons about it, and I must please understand, I'm not a media house, and I don't really specialize in breaking news stories and shit like that. But this is a vital incident, and there's a lot of people that are sitting at this moment as we are talking that are being fed all sorts of bullshit by the Western media, and they are trying to whip up emotions, and what else can we expect from it? So in this Skidmark, I'm just going to try and shed some light on what is going on there, and let's look at the realities, because lies is everywhere and bullshit is everywhere. So just sit back and relax and listen to what I say, and then think about it. That is all. Think about it. To talk about the Pregozhin Wagner actions of last night and today, we need to wind back a bit. He jumped onto our screens during the Battle of Bakhmut. Prior to that, some of us were aware of Wagner, but very few knew about Pregozhin. His activity on social media, mainly Telegram, very quickly gained him a lot of followers, and he fed us with video reports of what was going on the front in a solid stream. Pretty soon, it was the general acceptance that if you want to know what was happening in Bakhmut, he was the source and go-to guy. Initially, it was unclear of what his actual position in Wagner was. He was clearly not a military guy, but he acted as if he was the commander of Wagner. There are many rumors whether or not he owns Wagner, or is he merely fronting for the real owners? Who is really in charge of the troops of Wagner, and who is the money behind Wagner? Those are questions that I don't have answers for. Wagner is fully equipped with everything: guns, tanks, armored vehicles, communication kits, artillery, and even Air Force components. So for me it was obvious this is a small army, not simply a PMC. It was also unthinkable that Wagner did not have serious support from the Russian government and the Russian military. The fighting men is a mixture of Russian volunteers, foreign volunteers, and ex-Russian military men. Noteworthy is that Wagner also have in their ranks some serious special military veterans, not only from Russia but international. Make no mistake, it is a formidable force. I am not going to talk about the recruiting of Russian convicts. I have spoken about it, and it's not unique to Wagner. The French Foreign Legion does the same. As his popularity grew, he became bolder, and pretty soon many commentators began to question: 1. His motives, 2. His sanity. Yes, his sanity. He started off by bitching about ammunition, which many doubted. Wagner was doing a good job in Bakhmut. Why would the MOD starve them of supplies? My opinion is that the ammo story was a psyop to lure the Ukrainian army into the meat grinder. And that did happen. My Zazi stalker was orgasmic over the ammo shortage of Wagner, and after the first disastrous attacks of Ukrainians, where Wagner shot them to pieces, I made a joke with my Zazi and just posted, "The Oscar goes to Pregozhin." It clearly went over his head, and he never made the connection. Even up to today, he keeps on mentioning my Oscar winner, as if I was backing an idiot. Some people are not so sharp with humor. Back to Pregozhin. Then he got bolder and started openly attacking some members of the MOD, and it was pretty clear he did not like Shoigu. I must mention that there are support for him on this. Putin changed the command structure in the Donbass, and General Surovikin ended up in Rostov-on-Don, in charge of the air wing for the Donbass. Pregozhin intensified his attacks on Shoigu and General Gerasimov. Again, he did find some support, albeit silently. Putin moved Pregozhin in under the command of General Surovikin, and Pregozhin liked that. He saw Surovikin as a military man. His discontent was clearly with the admin generals, and he carried on with his attacks. Then Bakhmut was over and Wagner was pulled out and replaced by the Russian army and Ahmed troops. He had a good relationship with Ramzan Kadyrov up to there. He was no longer in active combat, and his public presence started to fade. By this time, a large part of the Russian population saw him as a patriot and a hero, and it was generally accepted that he was the commander and owner of Wagner. I'm not so sure about that, but he became the face of Wagner. This was too much for his ego. Yes, ego. He is clearly an egomaniac and a narcissist. Then we started seeing posts from him that was negative on the Russian forces and low-key support for the Ukrainian efforts. This was weird to me, and I'm still puzzled by it. In the meantime, the war carried on without him. He started criticizing every failure of the Russian forces, and posts began to appear on some channels that he is talking to the Ukrainians. Me, personally, do not doubt his patriotism towards Russia. Then yesterday the shit hit the fan with Pregozhin declaring that they have had enough and will take Moscow over. What the fuck was that? Was this a coup, a rebellion, a protest, or treason? Let's listen to Putin. Actions that split our unity are in fact apostasy from one's own people, from comrades in arms who are now fighting at the front. This is a stab in the back of our country and our people. It was such a blow that was dealt to Russia in 1917, when the country was waging the First World War, but the victory was stolen from her. Intrigues, squabbles, politicking behind the back of the army, and the people turned into the greatest shock. The destruction of the army and the collapse of the state, the loss of the vast territories. As a result, the tragedy of the Civil War, Russians killed Russians, brothers killed brothers, and all sorts of political adventures and foreign forces who divided the country, tore it apart, took selfish gain. We won't let this happen again. We will protect both our people and our statehood from any threats, including from internal betrayal. And what we are faced with is precisely a betrayal. Exorbitant ambitions and personal interests led to treason. To betray our country, our people, and the cause for which, side by side with our other units and subunits, the soldiers and commanders of the Wagner group fought and died. Take note of his mentioning of 1917. Clearly he sees it as a rebellion. There goes the theory that Pregozhin was smoking traitors out for Putin to act. It might still happen, but not in this show. Now listen to Kadyrov. The head of the Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov, said that the Chechen fighters had already left for the zones of tension. He called what was happening an armed rebellion. In his Telegraph channel, Kadyrov wrote that now it is not the time to voice personal grievances and resolve disputes. The rear must always be calm and reliable. History shows that such actions can lead to bloody consequences. Kadyrov stressed that we have Supreme Commander who knows the whole situation down to the smallest detail. Vladimir Vladimirovich noted quite rightly in his address to the nation that it is military mutiny, said the head of Chechnya, adding that there is no justification for such actions. Kadyrov also said that the fighters of the Ministry of Defense and the Russian Guard and the Chechen Republic had already left for the zones of tension. The rebellion must be crushed, and if this requires tough measures, then we are ready, said Kadyrov. Now, Ramzan Kadyrov is a straightforward man, and he makes no secret of his loyalty to Putin and to Russia. It's clear that he sees this also as a rebellion. Pregozhin overplayed his hand. I can see no off-ramp for him from this. For military coup to work, you need support from top military command as well as of the population. Now look what is going on in Rostov-on-Don. Residents of Rostov do not quite support Pregozhin's initiatives. There are problems and they need to be solved, and this is undeniable. But such a stab in the back to our troops at a time when there are heavy battles along the entire front line, this is a betrayal. Fighters of PMC Wagner, stop. You now do everything so that we lose. We personally respect you guys immensely and consider you real heroes. So stay that way. Don't label yourself as traitors. That is really important to take note of. And then we have this, and this is the image of Pregozhin in the Rostov-on-Don military headquarters. Of course the Wagner fighters are patriots of their motherland, but the fact that they do not obey the President and the Supreme Commander-in-Chief is a rebellion and betrayal. Pregozhin, in his new address, the President was deeply mistaken about the betrayal of the motherland. We are patriots of our motherland. No one is going to turn themselves in at the request of the President, the FSB or someone else, because we do not want the country to live on in corruption, deceit and bureaucracy. And there he really makes it clear of what his big gripe is. And it's against bureaucracy and corruption in the MOD. And here is a Wagner tank in Rostov. Take note of the tip of the barrel. The bag is still over it. That tells you something. But it is clear he does not have the military support, and in Rostov-on-Don it is clear that the population also don't want this. Pregozhin's words may sound great to him, but the MOD and public is not going to buy it. Look at this Wagner tank. I showed you the image of that. Note that the sock is over the barrel tip. It is not going to buy him brownie points. I doubt it. The people are upset. Look what is waiting for Wagner contingent that are on their way to Moscow. In the southwest of Moscow, in the Yasenovo district, people in camouflage uniforms set up an AGS-30 and set up shooting positions from sandbags. So, the Russian military and security services is ready for them and is waiting for them to come. And then there was this news bit. Claims by Pregozhin that military units in Lipetsk joined the side of Wagner are untrue. Wagner forces were repulsed on the outskirts of Voronezh by military police and were forced to take the bypass. Now those military guys that you saw that are setting up the roadblocks and so forth, incidentally, the same military that are supplying ammo and weapons to Wagner. This was a stupid move. And then we get this. In the courtyard of a Trezini hotel near Pregozhin's office were found boxes full of money. According to Fontanka Media, in total FSB officers found 4 billion rubles. That's around $47 million in cash. Where the money come from, to whom it belongs, and what it was intended for is still unknown, Fontanka writes. But now this is part and parcel of the media, spreading stories. All part of that. That's the media mongers now, starting to cast doubt on everything around Pregozhin. He saw that and issued a statement. Pregozhin claims that the money found in St. Petersburg was true. This is money for salaries and compensation to PMC Wagner employees. And that was all he said. And it sounds plausible to me. Why should I doubt that? Now I want to read you some comments from commentators that they know what they're talking about. The first one is from Yuri Podelaka. Pregozhin's rebellion. What's next? As I understand what is happening, everyone is now waiting to see how the Pregozhinists' march on Moscow will end. For Pregozhin himself, this is his last trump card. If successful, regardless of how he understands it, for Moscow, if the threat is repulsed, excellent starting positions to start a dialogue with the rebels, after which they will become more accommodating. It is clear that until it becomes clear whether the campaign was successful or not, no one will conduct any serious negotiations at this stage. And so we wait. Army Special Forces, in view of the fact that all combat-ready units are at the front, fortified and on the bridges of the main routes to Moscow, along the line of the river Oka. In turn, the Wagner detachments are already moving across the territory at the Tula region, and they have about 250 kilometers to go to the barriers. That is, by the evening they will converge, and much will depend on what happened next. And then we have this comment, and this commentator has got an interesting view. Well, here is the final diagnosis. I'm glad that it's completely coincided with my opinion. Even more glad to see the political will. Putin gave an assessment of the situation with Pregozhin. This is a blow to Russia, to our people, and our actions to protect the fatherland from such threat will be tough. Methods will suffer inevitably punishment. They will answer both before the law and before our people. The armed forces and other state bodies have received the necessary orders. Putin called the heroes of the Wagner fighters who are fighting in a special operation. Their name and glory were betrayed by those who organized the rebellion. We faced betrayal. Exorbitant ambitions led to the betrayal of Russia. The Russian armed forces have received the necessary order to neutralize those who organized the armed rebellion, Putin said. And then we have this, and this is from one of the editors of Slavyangrad, and this is a very reliable source. And his name is Zin. I stand by my earlier comments that this doesn't have the fingerprints of a traditional coup. This almost seems like a protest action that is attempting to snowball into some sort of mass movement. This is definitely a betrayal and mutiny, but I can see no scenario where this results in an overthrow of the state or any section of the state apparatus. Maybe Pregozhin was counting on some popular revolt, or perhaps he's making it up as he goes along. Either way, the best strategy is to wait and see how this all plays out. The boys at the front continue to do their jobs and the state continues to roll forward. And I think that is a very valid and a very sober summary of what happened. And then we get this comment from Victor. Now, I like this guy a lot. He is a journalist that is in Russia, and I follow him on Twitter, I follow him on Telegram. And the guy is really very level-headed and objective when he writes his commentary. I can say for certain that Pregozhin is the person that the faggots in the US State Department and CIA want gone the most. Some traitor 100% took money to instigate him into doing this. They have been planning of ways to get rid of him for months and wanted to make it look like the MOD killed him in power struggle. Then they hope to turn the military against Wagner and start a civil war. Destroy morale at the front. The MOD is full of traitors who take Western bribes with the amount of access it have seen we have regarding your military technology. Friends, a lot of this inner circle have been taking Western money for decades, like Alisher Yusmanov, whose wife and business partner were in the UK SIS pay pool in the early 90s. Grandfather is not even aware enough to realize Usmanov's wife was left out of the Western sanctions. I'm not certain about Shoigu, but we 100% have a high-level source in our MOD who is deliberately instigating shit with Wagner on orders from Washington, D.C. Shoigu's daughter went to the UAE, which is one of the favorite places to bribe Russians. So it could be him. Essentially, it will be someone who has sent family abroad to Switzerland, Cyprus, UK, UAE, Monaco, Malta, Panama, or certain Caribbean islands where the CIA establishes the bank accounts for them. They hate Peskov and Medvedev with a passion in DC too. So expect the traitors in the inner circle to turn on them next. As you understand, this information does not cancel Pregozhin's betrayal. Riot, PMC Wagner is precisely a betrayal. Now, this what I read to you was from an American reader that shared it with Victor. It's quite clear Pregozhin overplayed his hand. Why? I'm sticking to my opinion that it is an ego thing and nothing else. I do not doubt his patriotism. The BBC obviously foamed at the mouth, and here is their first shot. Moment of Today broadcast on BBC, HSE lecturer Olga Krasniak began to say that the Russian people would definitely not accept the rebellion because we are one people, we are one nation, we are united in achieving our goals. But you understand, this is not what the British state channel host want to hear. Therefore the presenter interrupted the speaker. What else could you expect? That conduct was so predictable. If you have a brain and think and not just swallow what MSM pours into the feeding bottle. And what do you expect? Zelensky chimes in. That narco-Nazi from Kiev. Zelensky indirectly supported Pregozhin's actions and called Russia weak. The president of Ukraine supported the actions of the founder of the Wagner PMC, Yevgeny Pregozhin, against whom a case has been initiated on the fact of a call to mutiny, and claims that Russia has shown its weakness against the background of recent events. In a message on the Telegram channel, the narco Führer wrote that there is already chaos in the Russian Federation and Russia's weakness is obvious. Earlier, the head of the main intelligence directorate of Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Kirill Budanov, actually justified Prigozhin's actions, saying that he allegedly tells the truth to a greater extent, in particular about the equipment of Russian forces and the course of hostilities. Well, that's their view. But it is an extremely volatile situation there. I am sure more info will come out that will most probably support some of my points, and other will turn out to have been pure guesswork. But at least you now have more to think about and make up your own mind. One thing is clear: how the hell can anyone expect that a PMC will overthrow Russia and Putin when NATO is clearly failing? Think. In the next hours we will see lots of facts, masturbation and premature ejaculations, but I doubt if there will be any real orgasms. Putin is solid in the seat and the Russian military will crush Wagner. At this point it is clear that the MOD and Putin is trying to avoid a bloodshed. Having said that, Prigozhin can be sure of one thing: if they catch him, he will face Russian law, nothing else. It is obviously a very volatile situation, and it makes doing what I do very difficult, because things can change in the time it takes to record, edit and upload. But it is what it is. Here are some info released in the past 15 minutes. The Foreign Ministry statement on the current political situation. The attempted armed mutiny in our country is resolutely rejected by Russian society, which strongly support President of Russia, Vladimir Putin. Reckless aspirations of the conspirators are essentially aimed at destabilizing the situation in Russia, destroying our unity, and undermining the effort of the Russian Federation to reliably ensure international security. Therefore, the mutiny plays into the hands of Russia's external enemies. We warn Western countries against undertaking even the slightest attempts to use the domestic Russian situation to achieve their Russophobic goals. Such attempts would be futile and will find no reasonable resonance either in Russia or among reasonable political forces abroad. We firmly believe that in the near future the situation will find a solution worthy of the age-old wisdom of the Russian people and the Russian state. All the goals and objectives of the special military operation will be achieved. Our country will continue on its sovereign course to ensure its security, defend its values, strengthen its authority in the international arena, and establish a just, multipolar world order. We highly value the understanding of this principled position by our allies and foreign partners, which we are fully aware of already now. Now that is a statement from Lavrov's division. And then we get this: Belarusian president in agreement with Vladimir Putin held talks with Wagner PMC head. Alexander Lukashenko's press service has reported that Yevgeny Prigozhin accepted a proposal to stop the Wagner movement inside Russia and to take further steps to de-escalate tensions. According to Lukashenko, there is currently a draft to resolve the situation with the PMC, which includes security guarantees for its fighters. How's that? And earlier today, some channel reported about Lukashenko has fled Belarus. And in the meantime, he was flying to Rostov-on-Don to talk to Pregozhin. And then, here is the latest bit that I have before I will compile this one. Wagner column to turn around and head back to the field camps. PMC head Pregozhin. And there you have it. So, I hope you enjoyed this and you found value in it. I'm just trying to get information out, especially to my people here in South Africa that are being spoon-fed by SABC and ECNA and CakeNet and Media 24 and those guys, because they just tell you the one side of the story, and if you listen to them, Putin is already packing his bags to flee to who knows where. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.